Hey there everyone, welcome to this semi-short-ish sort of video on the template I made and put up on Twitter and Instagram yesterday that people have been asking about. It's popped up in various Facebook groups and stuff, so it's obviously doing the round, so I thought I may as well show you how I created it and what I actually use it for, because some people are a bit unsure of how it works in the picture. But the actual template itself is just a sheet of just sort of quite thin plastic card, and then just a load of 32mm bases super glued to the back of it. I've kept some offcuts from like the middle piece and some spare. These are just used to heighten the smaller bases, because if you look at a standard GW 40mm and the 25mm, it's hard to see in the picture, but they are slightly different heights. The 25mm is actually quite a bit lower, so you can see it there quite well. So what I do with these to get the roll an even height is I just blue tack that to the little bit of plastic there, and then it raises it up to so it's an equal height to the 40s and 32s and 60s, 65, whatever you're gonna pop in there. What I've made with this one is it's actually big enough to put the 60, well it's called a 60 on the GW site when you get it supplied with models, but when you actually measure it, it's 63, 64. It's not quite 65. The bases that are sold as 65s are also about 63, but I mean you could make the shape a lot bigger, obviously, to accommodate for any sort of site if you're doing squares, or old style chariot bases, or the new big ovals or something. You could obviously make the whole of it bigger, but I think if you're going to do something Archeon sized, Alarial sized, the big, almost the size of that, like the dinner plate size base, it might be easier to not bother, because obviously this roller is probably about the same width, I guess, as the biggest. So quick look at some of the biggest bases. Yeah, 120, so it's like 150. So you'd probably be easier just actually lay that bad boy flat and just go straight over. Maybe put a guide either side, like just a couple of bases on a thin, a bit of plastic card, just to give you some sort of support so you get the even roll. So this is a Greenstuff roller from Greenstuff World. I've got a bunch of different texture ones. This is a metal plate grid one. You can see there it's got like the diamond pattern. It's probably a bit easier to see on this one actually. So you've got like the diamond pattern, some screw sort of bolt bits, and some plates. That's a 32mm base. You can see it's about 2mm sort of thick on the actual top of the base. It's been smoothed out, so it's actually goes up at the same angle as the base itself, so it finishes on like a nice little sort of coned top. Greenstuff World actually sell template cutters. They look like little round cookie cutters. They don't work with Games Workshop bases because they are cut to the exact size of sort of 40mm. If you look at the bottom of a 40mm base, it's actually 39mm. But more importantly, the top where you're going to put the actual base insert is 37, 38mm. So the circle it actually cuts doesn't fit the top, and you're gonna have to trim it anyway. So it's basically useless for GW bases. You may as well just make them yourself. If you're going to use it on Sarissa, like wooden cut bases that are actual cut to millimeter size, then they would work obviously with those. But again, the 25mm, the top of the base is 25, 23. So again, doesn't actually fit, and you'd end up cutting it down, and then you wouldn't get the perfect the perfect cut circle anyway. So if anyone has had experiences with them and have found a way of using them, give us a shout and let us know. But so far from what I can tell, they don't actually work. A few people have said they're the wrong size as well. So the mix I'm going to use for the base is standard Milliput yellow grey. For its sort of sanding properties, it's really good for getting a nice smooth edge. and the Greenstuff. I just bought a couple of meters of cheap Greenstuff and I've cut it into smaller little sort of sections. I'm going to do about a 50-50 mix, so you get the properties of both. So it cuts really nicely like Greenstuff because it's quite obviously the soft texture you get from it, but it's also hard enough to sand, so you get sort of kind of in the middle of Milliput and in the middle of Greenstuff, so it's really useful for doing this sort of thing. It doesn't clog up the roller detail either, like some putties and stuff do. So I did try Das clay, and this is, so you can see it's like an orangey red colour. I did try a few. This obviously is rock hard because it's clay dried, but it shrinks a bit. It's kind of brittle. If you drop this base hard enough, it might actually crack the top bit, whereas the Greenstuff and Milliput is obviously it cures a lot better, and it doesn't have as much shrinkage or anything. I mean, if you're going to do hundreds and hundreds of bases, it might be worth figuring out a way of actually getting the Das clay to work, because it's super cheap. You can get like a sort of a kilo brick of it for like £4 or £5 or something, which is, you know, nothing when you could do literally 1,000 bases out of that. Obviously Milliput and Greenstuff are a bit more expensive, but for the hassle, it's just worth it spending the little extra. So obviously I've got my water pot and just a semi-dulled knife blade, like an older one that I've used for scraping models. I just keep the older blades on a piece of cork, so you can see how many models I've scraped recently. That's the last few months, I guess 6 months of blades that I've gone through. I've built a lot of models, but I don't like, once they've lost their edge and they're not as good for plastic, I like keeping them and then using them for stuff like, you know, this one you can see it's got bits of Greenstuff and bits stuck on the blade, and they're useful for just using on, you know, so you don't use your new blades on you know, Milliput and Greenstuff. So I've cut off a sort of equal-ish amount to Greenstuff to Milliput, and this one will have a little bit more Milliput in the mix, just so you can see how it sort of all reacts. What I'll do is, when you're using these, when you're mixing it all together, I just do it in smaller amounts like this. You can cut massive chunks off, like a big bit of Greenstuff, big chunk of each of the Milliputs, but the problem is it takes a long time to knead it all together. It makes a lot of mess as well, because the yellow part of the Milliput actually is quite sticky, so it will stick to your fingers. So again, a bit of water on your fingers just to sort of knead it all together. What I do is I'll just quickly mix it all up, get it ready to go, and then I'll pop back to do the next part. Alright, so I've kneaded the mix. It's a very light green, almost like a lime green, I guess. Obviously you got the yellow from the Milliput in there, so you can see it's slightly lighter than the last mix I made for some test bases I was doing. Probably a bit closer to that last one I did there. But yeah, once you've got it all sorted, just break a little bit off, and then we'll pop it onto this 32. So I just push it down, push it out to all the edges. Just trying to keep that in a bit of focus there for you, so you can see what I'm doing. As you can tell, this video was kind of not very well prepared, because it was a kind of last minute, oh okay, I'll just do this so people can see what I'm actually doing with it. So once it's sort of stuck down, you obviously have a bit of a rim around the edge here, so I'll just grab a little bit of water, just keep my finger a bit damp, and then just slide my finger down against the edge of the base just to pull the Greenstuff down so it meets the edge nicely, so you don't have a little gap or anything under the Greenstuff. Obviously if you get mess around the edge of the rim, just wipe it around. We can give them a light little sanding later anyway, once any excess trimming has been done, if you need to. But I've just got a new computer recently and I've not really done much recording since, so you can see the settings, it's kind of jumping back and forward where it's trying to get light. I need to reset up my desk before I do any more actual proper video recording of painting. So now what I've done is I've got my thumb wet again, and I'm just smoothing out the top of the base. So it's kind of, it's got a, hard to tell there. So it's got a bit of a flat edge going round. I'm just making sure that it's not too sloped, because when you roll it, you want it quite thick towards the sides. So a little bit of water on there. And with the Greenstuff rollers, the key is water, water, and water. If you end up with your desk covered in water, you're probably doing it right. So just to make sure this doesn't move from inside the roller, what I'm going to do is just grab a bit of blue tack off my desk. Now obviously if you were magnetising your army, what you could do here is modify this slightly to have like an inset in the bottom, like a piece of metal, and then just magnet your bases in. That would probably be quite a nice little production line if you were doing that. Right, so a bit of blue tack under there, just re-flatten out that top bit there. Again, a bit of water, just not leaving fingerprints on it at all. Push that down in the little template. See, I've tried to keep it as flat as possible. The blue tack's there, I should, when I start rolling, stick it down anyway, so we'll go with that. Now ideally you want to leave this to cure now for about 20 minutes or so. 20 minutes, half hour. I make like 10-15 of these at a time, and then I leave them. By the time I've got to the end one, the first one's probably nearly about ready to go. I mean, you can see here I had a bit of a production line going on yesterday. Let me just show you that. So I made a whole tray of 60s, 25s, 40s and 32s for an army. So on this one you can see here, it's kind of smoothed out towards some of the edges where I didn't make this one deep enough towards the side, so the texture roller wasn't quite able to pick out the detail. Whereas with like this one, obviously I gave it a much thicker coat on the top of Greenstuff, and it's managed to, you know, get really nice ridge detail and stuff in there. So like with this one, I'll put some bits of scrap metal and stuff on the base, because the whole army is going to be industrial sort of themed. So I'll put some bits of pipe, and I'll still use these, but I'll disguise the areas. There's no point in wasting the base. It's still, most of it's still there. The feet can cover some of it, and like I said, a bit of mesh, bit of wire, pipe, bit of a gun or something. You can see on some of these 25s, the detail is actually super clear. They're very, I mean, if you were doing a full army, I like to just get all the bases done. So count out everything at the start. I know this army's got 17 40mm, 38 25mm, 6 60mm, and a couple of 32mm for characters. So I get all the bases in a pile, count it all out, and then just go to town on it and make them all in one go. Obviously, if you're going to make a big project, it might be worth making even, you know, more, just so you've got like the spares. So the idea of this template is when you roll the roller across it, you're going to get a perfectly flat roll from either side of this supporting it. If you were to just say, imagine that was some white Greenstuff on there, just do this, you know, by hand on the flat surface there, there's a chance for it to slope, roll. Greenstuff's gonna get pushed around in uneven angles, and you can end up with like weird sort of bobbly bases. So this was one of the early test ones I did. You can see it's slightly recessed in areas where when I did the roll originally, it wasn't flat enough, and then you have like the Greenstuff pushes, and you get a slightly deeper side there, slightly shallower side, then you lose some of the detail. Again, I'm going to put something over this, bit of wire, mesh, maybe a piece of busted tank or something there to get rid of that indent, but that can be avoided with this little thing, which is, well, I was quite happy with how simple it was, to be honest. I didn't really think it was going to come out as well as it did, but for all of the no money it cost me to make, it actually works really well. So again, water is absolutely key here, so just chuck on a load of water, because the worst thing is when this gets clogged up. You can see when I did some of the original Millipup mixes, there's some yellow trace still in the bottom there. I've scraped that so it's flat, but there's just tiny little pigments or bits of yellow I just can't get out of there now. Some of the detail on these is really fine, and you don't want to have to scrape with like a knife blade. You can see a bit of Das clay in that one there, just hiding in there where that one fell apart. Again, the more water the better for this, so you don't want to clog the rollers up. And then obviously if you want to use like this part of the detail, which I've done on quite a few of them, you move the template right over to the edge there, and then when you roll it, you've still got the support on this piece here, so you're still going to get the flat roll, but this allows you to move it around and get, you know, the piece of detail you want. Again, just take a look at sort of roughly where you want to go. I think we get this sort of line here, a bit of the hex and a bit of the dot grain there, you'll be able to see. So obviously I've not left this to cure for long enough, so this is kind of a may not work as well. But again, don't roll it a bit, roll it a bit, roll it a bit. You want to just get one nice fluid roll, because if you roll it and stop, you'll get like a the curve of this will sit in the green stuff, and then you'll end up with like it'll look like a bunch of little U's lined up. So line it up, one smooth roll, and you can see there where I put on obviously extra green stuff. It wasn't measured out perfectly or anything. Got a nice cover on it. The details all there, but there's some excess green stuff which has been pushed because obviously it was too thick and it flattened it down and forced it off the edge. Perfectly fine. You can just wait for that to cure and then trim it off. So this is one of the tester ones I was playing around with yesterday. You can see here there's some excess green stuff, so you can literally just take your knife blade, you know, preferably a decent sharper one, and then obviously you always cut away from yourself. If I slip, that's going to go way past my finger over here. I wouldn't recommend cutting straight towards your finger there. Again, just little slices just to bring it back perfectly flat with the top of your base. And then what you can do once you've got it to that stage, you get this one that I did yesterday again. So this one's already been cut, but you get some of this some Tamiya sandpaper, not super fine grit or anything. It's just like 500 or something. It's nothing silly. Bit of water again on there, and then just give the side of the base a little rub around with the sandpaper. It'll just take any rough edges off the bits where you were cutting it, even it out, make it nice and smooth, and again it will match up to the slope on your base quite nicely. That is actually really smooth now. I think this is might not actually. Oh no, this is some wet and dry sandpaper. I was going to say, with this sort of thing, I always just put a bit of water on anyway, because it stops you getting like the scrape marks from the sandpaper. But yeah, I mean, once that's done, your base is pretty much there. This is great because it's got the properties of Millipup, so you can drill into it nicely, you can sand it, but it also still has a bit of give to it as well because it retains some of the Greenstuff's properties. These, again, obviously it's green Millipup, spray it, you know, just crack on. That base is done. One of the things I did do with these is when I was blue tacking the smaller base into this template, was if you've got a load of water in the middle of your template, they actually stick down. The water actually holds that the black piece underneath in place, so when you pop your roller across there, it stays in place, so you can literally just use the water to sort of seal the little bit of plastic card down, then just peel it up when you're done, if you haven't got any blue tack to hand. That actually was really helpful when I was doing it, because I was doing like 25mm bases at a time. I didn't have enough of these bits of plastic cut, so instead of having to glue tack it down each time, just chucking a bit of water down, and then it sticks quite nicely. But yeah, I mean, hopefully you guys have found this video useful. The Greenstuff rollers are great. They just take a bit of experimentation to use. This was an absolute lifesaver. I can't believe how simple this thing was. Once I made it, I was well impressed with myself. I sent it to a few people in WhatsApp, sort of celebrating that I was on to a winner. It costs literally nothing to make as well. You don't need any silly metal cutters or anything that don't actually fit GW bases if that's what you're using. Again, like I said, if you're using the Sarissa's or MDF bases, yeah, the cutters are probably great, but unfortunately they don't work for the purpose, which is what I needed, which was using them on actual sloped GW bases. Yeah, I kind of want to get back into doing more little fun hobby videos like this, because I don't have to spend ages planning it out, and I can just grab all the stuff, chuck it on the table, and just, you know, just crack on with it. But yeah, hopefully again it was useful, and I'll speak to you guys in the future. Cheers, bye.